Hey everyone. Hi, I'm the Chalk Girl, also known as Beth, and I am trying out my first demo video. Some people have been asking for stuff like this for a while, and so I figured I'd give it a shot. Today we're going to do something kind of easy, and it's one of the earliest stages of any of my artwork that I have to deal with. So we're just gonna go for it. So hopefully, if you want to follow along, cool. I'll be using Photoshop. But yeah, let's get started. So I'm gonna make a new document, and there are a couple different ways that you can go about this. Because all of my stuff is large, it's all mural sized, I like to do a 1-to-1 ratio in inches. So if my canvas is 6 by 8 feet, I will do a 6 by 8 inch document. Today we're going to be doing a 4 by 6 document. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to create a new one. As you can see, I've already got this set in here. Some people might want to do this a little bit differently if you are not scaling so much. Let's say you are working on maybe an 18 by 24 canvas, or even just like a small portrait size on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. You could put in those exact dimensions for this document, and then you would have almost like a perfect 1-to-1 grid. I just use this 4 by 6 thing, or this 1-to-1 ratio for me because I'm going big, and you'll see how I do that. But sometimes folks that are doing, more manageable sizes, they'll probably want to have an exact replica of their canvas on the computer. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create this document, and what we're going to do is I'm going to make this a black background. It's a little bit easier to see because the guidelines that Photoshop has preset are all kind of like neon or just light colors, so this will be a little bit easier to see. Now, when I make my grids, I like to have a center point. If someone is wanting to, focus on a particular portion of a canvas, they might not do this the same way. They might start, their middle line might be kind of somewhere on a different spot. But for me, I like to have it right in the middle. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to grab the ruler, and if you can't see a ruler on your Photoshop workspace, the shortcut for it is Command R. I'm on a Mac, so Command R or Control R on a Windows or a different computer. And I'm going to literally just move my mouse over the ruler, and I'm just going to click and drag. And as you can kind of see, it already snaps in place a little bit to automatically go to the middle. It will also happen for the other axis as well, so it kind of like snaps in. But this is perfect because I know this is dead center. This is where I'm going to start. So for mine, I like to cut everything in halves. Again, maybe you want to set up your document a little bit differently. Maybe you want to cut it in thirds first, or maybe you want to do quadrants and kind of work your way from there. I just do this because this is a typical size canvas that I use, so I always have a starting point in the middle, and I always just have it. So instead of making all of these lines, one for each of them, we're going to cut it in half every single time. So to make my second line, I'm going to click and drag another one, and because this is set at 2 inches right here, I can go over it, and it even has, it'll tell you where it is on your canvas. So see the little X, and then it tells me I'm at 2 inches. I know I want to have that, so I'm going to go to 1, and I'm going to try to get it as close as I can to 1. Perfect. And now I'm going to have that again. So now I've got 0.5. I'm going to have that again, 0.25. Oh, there we go. And again, it's a personal choice of how many grid lines you want to have. When I first started with Chalk Girl, I think I maybe had like 10 lines total on the entire canvas, which is to me now, it's kind of crazy to think of how anything worked out that way. But this, I like to go with very tiny grid lines. So I'm actually going to take it a couple lines further. So each of these is kind of if I wanted to, I could draw a line right now and I could copy and paste it a whole bunch, and I could, my spaces could be this wide apart the entire time. I want to go a little bit smaller, so I'm going to click and drag one more time, and this was 0.25, so half of that. And for those of us that sometimes don't know everything off the top of our heads, it's 0.125. And I will often have a calculator with me to go even tinier. So 0.125 divided by 2 is 0.0625. So the closest I can get is going to be 0.062. Fabulous. So now we have a series of increasingly spaced lines, but we're going to make the whole grid just as wide as this little section over here. So we want spaces that are this wide for the entire thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a neon color. So typically I go for green first. You can choose whatever you want. Usually you want to pick something that doesn't blend into your subject matter. So let's say I'm drawing a picture of the blue folks from Avatar, the James Cameron film. I probably don't want to make blue lines because I won't be able to see them very easily. So you want to do a different color. I'm going to make my brush pretty darn tiny. I can go a little bit tinier than that. And I'm going to go all the way up here, make this as tiny as I can, and I'm going to try to get my pointer as centered on this line as possible. Sometimes if you can't get so I have a brush that's the size of it right now is literally 1. I can't get any smaller than that. So I'm going to try to center it over this line. I'm going to hold down the shift button, and I'm going to just kind of drag it just so much that it doesn't take my whole screen with it. Sometimes if you click on something and you take the shift, it'll like drag you all the way down. I don't enjoy that when it does that. So I'm going to draw this first line. I'm going to draw the second line. So I'm going to get as centered over it as I possibly can. I'm going to hold that shift button. I'm going to drag it down to roughly the same distance. Oops. So I accidentally let go of the shift key that time. So roughly the same. They don't have to be perfect. We'll fix that in a second. But so now I have these two lines. Awesome. I can now take this, and because I have other guides on here, I can grab... Oh. Okay, so Beth made a flop, and here we embrace those mistakes. So I accidentally drew on my background layer. We're all learning here, aren't we? I'm going to undo those lines. I'm going to make a second layer, and I'm going to lock that first layer. So don't forget to make your layers, kids. I'm going to draw this line back again. I'm going to draw this line back again. Awesome. So now we have our two lines. So continuing to what I was going to say before, I have these two now, and I can copy and paste them. As long as I grab them together, we'll have the same distance apart, right? Well, so if I were to take this, and if I were to copy it and drag it all the way over here to lock in with this guideline over here, there's still space right in here, and so we don't want to do that. We want to get perfect lines as much as we can. So to combat that, we drew all these other grid lines, and I'm going to copy it by making sure I have this layer selected. I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key, and I'm just going to click and drag, and it won't snap directly to the line. Sometimes the pixels are not lined up as perfectly, or like these lines, You can draw more freely with a brush than you can with the straight lines that you may have put for your grid system or for your guidelines. So, oops. So I can click my V key and I can kind of nudge it, but I have to choose one side or the other, which is a little unfortunate, but as long as I stay the same throughout the entire document, they should be the same distance apart. Cool? Cool. So now, as I hit that Alt key to click and drag, you'll see that it made a second layer, made a copy. But I don't want to just use this one set of 2 lines over and over again. So I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to click on that second layer. I'm going to do a Command E, which merges them all together. So now I have this set of 4 lines. Pretty cool. I'm going to do the same thing, just now with this set of 4. So I'm going to hold down the Alt key, going to click and drag. I'm going to get it as close as I can to this mark over here. And like I said, as long as it's on the same side of this guideline, they should be the same distance apart. So awesome. So now I have these 2 sets of 4. I'm going to merge them. And I'm going to do it again. You can see a pattern here, right? All right. So I'm going to nudge it with my arrow keys. We're going to go right back there. Perfect. And then, so now we've made it a quarter of the way with all these lines that are well spaced. Do it again, and we're halvesies. Gonna nudge it. Perfect. Merge. All right, and then one last time. And I'm gonna bring this last one as close as I can to the edge because we already have the line on the side of our half indication or our halfway guideline. And so I'm going to get it as close to this edge as possible. Yeah, so I can, if this were a guideline right here, I have it on the flip side of that guideline. So you can't see it, but it's there. So awesome. So now we have all these lines. Holy cow, they multiplied. All right, so I'm gonna merge that and I'm gonna make this final merge layer called the vertical because that is what they are, our vertical guidelines. So now, since I have all of them here, I'm not going to copy and paste them all the way down. What we can do is we can Control T and grab them to transform them. And I can literally, I believe I have Creative Cloud. So I have, I think, the 2020 version of Photoshop. So if you were to just click and drag one of these markers on the side of the bounding box, it keeps it proportional, which is a great new feature and I love it. But sometimes I have to remember that it's now the opposite to take something out of its original proportions. So if you have an older version of Creative Cloud or Photoshop, you may have to hold down the Shift to keep the proportions, but for those that have the 2020 version, you're going to hold Shift to alter the proportions. So I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to drag this all the way down. I don't need to be so far beyond it, but just enough so that we don't see the edges of these lines. And it stretched it a little bit, which is okay, but I can do the same thing up at the top. So Shift and pull those forward. And now I have a whole set of vertical lines that go the entirety of our grid, which is really cool. So now we're going to do the same thing, but vice versa to the horizontal. So I'm going to grab the horizontal ruler up here on the y-axis, and I'm going to drag it all the way down. Since this is the 6-foot side, it's going to snap in at the 3-inch mark. And let's get rid of this just so that we don't get disoriented. So now half of 3 is 1.5. Gonna find that mark slowly but surely. Bloop, right there. Half of 1.5 is 0.75, so 3/4. So 0.75. Parents, this is a great game for your kids that are learning fractions in math. So half of 75, 0.75 divided by 2 is 0.375. Half of that, 0.1875. Cool. And then I believe, so if we count these again, for my verticals, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I like to keep it even just because the more you keep it, if you have the same number of lines, you're going to have this tiny little, each box basically is going to be the ratio of your full canvas, which is really nice. I appreciate that a lot sometimes. So I think I need one more. So half of 0.1875 is 0.09375. And I know we can't get that specific, but 0.093. Cool. So now we have all of our horizontal guidelines. Awesome. We're going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to make a new layer. This is going to be my horizontal layer. And I'm going to grab my brush again. And we're going to zoom in so close. And now I'm going to start this process again. So I'm going to get as close as I can to the middle of this guideline. I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to drag it out a little bit. Sweet. Same thing on this one. I'm going over and back, although, well, I have that set. Although my opacity is 100% and my flow is 100%, sometimes it takes a couple layers to get the full opacity, especially with the smaller brushes, because they're only filling in, well, for this one, it's filling in 1 pixel at a time, I believe. I think that's how the brushes work. So now that we have the first two, I'm going to hold down my Alt. I'm going to make sure I'm out of my paintbrush. I'm going to click V to get to my transform tool or my move tool. I'm going to hold down the Alt button and I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to go to this other side. I don't know about this one. Maybe that's a little more centered to me. And it matches up a little bit closer with the first set. So we're gonna merge these two layers. Cool. I'm going to do it again. Make sure I'm in my move tool, hold down the Alt key, click and drag, and hopefully it'll snap. If you hold down the Alt key and you zoom in, or if you use the roller bar on your mouse, it will zoom you in and out for people that are looking for more keyboard shortcuts for Photoshop. I'm going to grab those, I'm going to merge them. Same thing here. Make sure it's down. Merge. Are we halfway already? No. False hope. Cool. And then this will be our last one. I'm gonna pop it just to the other side of that line. Awesome. So now we have everything. It's all together. I'm gonna hide our guidelines. So these are all of our horizontal lines. Control T to get that bounding box. Hold down the shift if you have a newer version of Photoshop. There we go. Other side. Bam. Sweet. So this is our horizontal guidelines. Awesome, right? So now if you put both layers on, you've got these crazy sets of horizontal lines. and vertical lines. This grid, this awesome grid. It's a little matrixy right now, but we're gonna change that. So now I have all of these tiny itty bitty rectangles that all mimic the same size. They're the same ratio as this whole picture here. Pretty cool, huh? So they're gonna do that. And so now it'd be very hard for me to just start drawing. If I had an image behind this and this was my grid, I wouldn't really know where to start. I could, finger like this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But a little bit of an easier way to do that is to change the colors on some of these lines so that we have more sections that are easily visible. Better reference points for when we, maybe we start drawing in the middle and then we get tired of working there, so we want to go out to the side or something. Let's make it a little easier to get to the right spot instead of counting, okay, it's 20 spaces over and 32 up or something. So to do that, I'm going to get rid of one of these layers and I'm going to bring back my guidelines, which is just a controller command semicolon. And I'm going to highlight this middle bar, a different color. So the grids, obviously, like that won't, I don't know what that was. What did I just do? Well, if anyone knows what command and quotations is, that's pretty cool. Did I just discover a grid that I didn't know was there? Okay, this is great if you want squares. This comes into play. Okay, so here's your grid that Photoshop gives you. I don't know if this is adjustable or not. This is me learning something completely new because I accidentally hit the wrong key on the keyboard. This is great if you can adjust it, because these tiny lines might be impossible depending on what their measurements are. When you expand to a bigger canvas, I'm looking at a ruler. Let's say I have a ruler that's 6 feet long, and that's going to help me divide up all the sections on my to make my grid on my canvas. This might end up being, between a quarter and 5/16 on the ruler. So if this is adjustable, that'd be really cool. Don't know if it is. And so sometimes when you need to draw with the ruler, it would be almost impossible to make sure that it's aligned with this grid that comes with it. That's why I really enjoy having the grid that's the same dimensions. Also, I don't know if you could make that any smaller either. That'd be cool. Maybe I will learn and get back to you guys. Maybe this is an even quicker way. But in the meantime, back to this story. I'm going to get rid of one of these. I'm going to bring up my guides, and I'm going to know that this line right here is the middle line. So I'm going to change colors, and I'm going to do something pretty different from the original set of green colors that I have on here. So I'm going to go with pink. I'm going to get my paintbrush tool. It doesn't like that because I'm not on the right layer. And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger, but not so big that I could accidentally color these other lines. I'm going to lock the transparent pixels on this layer. I didn't know that that's what it was called, but basically, if I choose to draw on this layer now, this particular layer, I could color just what's there. It's not going to, you won't see in between the spaces. So it fills in what's already on the canvas and nothing else, which is really cool. It's very helpful. I use it all the time. But in this case, what we're going to do is we are going to, so I know that this is my line. I'm going to get rid of my guides really quick. I'm going to hold down that shift key so my brush doesn't go everywhere. And I'm going to just drag it down. And I'm going to paint that middle one pink. So now I know when I go to do my chalk lines on my grid, I can make this line, depending on whatever color I'm using, I can make it a different color, and then that's a great reference point. So if, like I said, if I wanted to draw something in the middle and I got bored with that and I wanted to move over here, I know that I can count so many lines out, but we're gonna make this even easier. So I count in sets of 5. Again, you could do it however you want. You could do every other line a different color. You could do every third line a different color. I just choose 5. It's easy for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, not including the pink one already, I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is going to be my new pink line over here. So I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to make this line pink. And I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to go through the entire side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bloop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Makes your eyes go a little crazy after a while. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, cool. So now I have that on that side. Gonna do the same thing on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bam. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, I can't. Seeing is really weird when you get up this close with these lines. Probably not good for my eyes. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. And I know from the other one that the last one was 2 lines in, so I can just bam. All right. So now I'm going to hold that Shift key. Boop. See, like I said, it kind of drags it, and sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's not really favorable. But I'm going to make all of these lines pink. Maybe I just get a little too enthusiastic when I'm drawing or using. Right now I'm just using the mouse. I have no tablet in front of me. I have no, you know, special equipment or anything. It's just me and a computer mouse. So awesome. Perfect. So I'm going to, that's my vertical layer. How cool is that? I have every 5th line is a different color. Awesome. Gonna do it with the horizontal ones. So bringing back our guidelines, I know that this is the middle, and I'm going to make it pink. So I'm going to freeze the transparent pixels. I'm going to get it ready. I'm gonna get rid of my guideline, hold down Shift, and do that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe I'll speed up this part. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. Awesome. Okay. Smaller grids within your grid, and each one of these pink rectangles is also the size of your final canvas, which is really cool. Awesome. Okay, so this is great and all, but maybe I want one more thing on here that's going to help me identify where I am on the canvas. So I could count, you know, pink space by pink space, but let's make it a little bit easier and let's label the very center. So I'm gonna grab a 3rd color. Let's make this one orange. If that shows up, we'll test it and see. On my horizontal layer, I remember that this one is the middle. So I'm going to color that there. I still have my transparent. Oh, yeah, okay, so that works a bit. I'm gonna color just the middle one orange. And I'm gonna do that for this one as well. Sweet. Okay, so this is even easier to see my grid. I know where middle is. I know that I can count spaces out, and if I need to get into the nitty-gritty details, you know, over here, I can go from my middle space and I can count 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's between 3 and 5 on the pink over here, and then I can count down as well. And we'll cover more of that when we get to the next stage of gridding. But that's just kind of a cool thing. So now you have your grid and you're ready to go. You can place this just directly on top of whatever drawing you have. I would recommend saving this as a PNG file, and I can show you that really quick right now, just so that you have it in your files and you can literally drag and drop it, especially if you use this size a lot. So almost all of the conventions I go to, the canvas starts out at this size. So I can always have this PNG file in my back pocket. I can export it as a quick export PNG, and I can put it wherever I need to. So yeah, so that is my grid tutorial. I hope it was informative. I hope that some of you guys can get into gridding. I'm gonna look into that other shortcut that we had in here, this command quotations mark, and I'm gonna see if we can customize that, because if we can, that would be a game changer, right? Again, I don't know if you'd be able to color things. Let's see if you can. I don't even know if you'd be able to draw on it. A new layer. I mean, oh, it's a little sticky. It's got some give to it. So maybe that's something to look into. We'll see. But I'm gonna learn about this and then get back to you guys and we'll see what that is. But in the meantime, you have your grid, and now you can move on to the next part, which will be transferring it over, and we will talk about that in the next video. But thanks for joining. If you guys don't mind, please go like and follow me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I'm hopefully going to have more of these videos coming out soon, and just to get you guys on a cool, faster, hopefully, tips and tricks path for all of your artwork. So thanks for hanging around, and enjoy. Bye!